Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, my beautiful, beautiful souls. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Wendy Elwell. She has been helping individuals, families, and corporations live and create their best life and making love matter. As a Kundalini yoga teacher, a yoga nidra practitioner, raw food chef, Reiki master, certified trauma therapist, Wendy uses the truth of vibrational energy to create deep, well meaning. And it's such a pleasure and honor to have you here today. Hi, Wendy. How are you?
Hi, Veronica. I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest in your amazing summit that you're offering. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. I wanted to showcase your journey and how did you come up with this particular modality that you're helping people right now? And I know you host a lot of retreats on a continuous basis.
Well, it really started out of people kind of wanting intuitive guidance, or what we often call people call a reading. And what kept happening is over and over again, these patterns just kept showing up. They'd solve one of their questions, but then there'd be another in a different circumstance that would all have the same root. So in very short amount of time, it became clear to me that while we could help someone with what they think they're coming for, like the reading or the question or the one thing, really the deeper healing comes from uprooting the pattern altogether and helping them shift their thinking to focusing on what they want, not what they don't want, rather than these like instances in time of transforming one particular problem or experience. So it sort of was born out of an intuitive gift that then became deeper in terms of transcending all the things to a deeper healing.
You touch on a lot of like generational trauma when you work with a person. Do you
Yes.
focus mainly on the trauma, on the family trauma from this lifetime, or do you actually dabble into past lives? And how do you do that?
Oh, I love that question. I got like what I call truth bumps everywhere, like my shoulders, down my spine.
We call it angel bumps.
I love that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's beautiful. So that sort of depends. We usually start in real time in the right here, right now, and then kind of see if that shifts it. And if it doesn't, then yes, we go sort of forward and back to see where else it might need to be cleared or addressed. Or often, if it is something carried over, that will show up in the session too. Um, so it's kind of a combination of things, really watching for when someone starts to not only feel better, but see changes in their real life experience. And if that's not happening, then we know we got to go forward or back in time and figure out why.
Absolutely. When someone comes to you, how can they distinguish between what's theirs trauma wise versus something that they specifically copied from other family members?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Usually it's when they're kind of doing all the quote unquote right things and they're not seeing any kind of shift, and they've been embodying the practices and really changing their life and not really seeing the change in their exterior experiences. Then we know that they're a generational trauma breaker, or what's often called a gatekeeper, and their work is beyond them. And then just sort of that gives them a deep sense of relief of why they're doing what they're doing, the magnitude of it. And then they start really connecting to the ancestors forward and back and feeling like their presence, like, you know, really being held in the healing that they're doing, because literally the family tree is rooting for them and really supporting them. And as soon as someone who feels like no matter what I do, I can't change my life, like it's not changing, it's not shifting, as soon as they connect to that, everything really opens for them and they feel like more purposeful about their journey rather than so connected to the struggle, which is like they feel aligned with the solution, not the problem. And that alone has its own vibrational impact.
Looking at your work, I noticed that you use a lot of aligning your energy codes
Mhm,
or your energetic signature,
mhm.
and you use this modality to ultimately dissipate different conflicts and harmonize relationships. Would you please touch a little bit about that?
So that, I love that you could sort of sense that, like, and how deep your work is, because don't think that I specifically necessarily said that anywhere, but that is a huge
I
part of it. Like,
probably telepathically just read it through you or something.
no, I love that. I love that because that's such a key component, like helping someone entrain to that coding or the central nervous system or that higher possibility of it doesn't have to be so complicated and a lot of work and a lot of pain just to shift to that higher vibration. And like just this resonance right here, like just being in your energy lifts the energy. So it's exactly that. It's that deep, really in a lot of ways, somewhat ancient, like God source coding that it's all of our birthright. And when one person has accessed it, to be around another person who's accessed it, that ripple is very powerful. A lot of times we hear someone say, like, laughter or smile is contagious. I think it's that. I think it's the transmission of that. Sometimes we call it vibration or codes, as you say. That alone just shifts someone. That's, I think, another reason why I love the in-person retreats so much, because exposure to that on a continuum is so transformative.
This is very profound. So, just by being in the presence of somebody that is a high vibration, that itself heals and harmonizes a lot of things in their life. So, the goal is to surround yourself with those
Mhm.
the key soul like family. They're
Yeah.
here to empower you and bring the best version of you.
Yes, and that just gave me those angel bumps or truth bumps that you mentioned, and that feels like really an opportunity to honor one of my teachers, who is the living embodiment of that vibration. He just turned 90. It's Gurudev from Amrit Yoga Institute. He founded Amrit, and that's a lot of his work. When you show up to one of the retreats and you get to be in his darshan or have him lead a yoga nidra, it's just like it's even hard to put into words. And so really just want to honor the lineages that have showed up in my life and that I've sort of attuned to as well. There's a lot of people who've held that space, and I think have helped me also hold that space. And so just feels really important to mention that. And I love the summit for that reason. Like, that's what you're doing, exposing people to many different varieties of the same truth, which is so important.
And
Yes.
it's so important to have those mentors, those elders, those people of the land who know this ancient practices that we get to
Yeah.
learn it from, not just things that we learn in the modern world.
Mhm.
And your practice became something of a jambalaya of modern technology and ancient wisdom. I
Yes.
wanted to ask, when you began your journey and you begin to learn all of these tools, because every person has this question, like, what do I begin and what do I do next? And
Mhm,
every
mhm.
single person has a unique journey. I want to hear about yours. How
Mm.
did you come up to this? Was it something that was vividly exposed in your family early on, or was it something that you had to search and find your own truth and you came up on this modality?
Oh, wow, that's a beautiful question. Yeah, so kind of like to your word jambalaya, it was a little bit of that for me. But what I also call reverse engineering, which is interesting because in real life, my dad was an engineer and also a navigator pilot early on in his life. And so it's like this inner GPS, I think, that we all have. And I had to figure out, I've come to realize that I was born almost 8 weeks early, back in a time where it wasn't so common and kind of miraculous to survive. And I really believe that being in the incubator for the amount of time that I was after my birth kind of cocooned and protected the remembering of coming from God back to earth. Like, it wasn't like so startling, like what's happening here, right? It was like I was literally in a bit of a cocoon, which I think anchored in the God-given gifts that we all have here on earth, so that I could hold them in a different way. So from a very young age, I would see things, know things, not know though that you're not supposed to say them out loud. Like that's not a, unless someone's asking you, you probably don't want to start saying things that are about to happen, So I had to reverse engineer and learn like which things are like socially acceptable to say, which things you can say, and to also be invited by someone to to be asked, really. Once I figured that part out, I then went through like the normal sort of like high school, college phase where, maybe it's easier not to have these blessings and gifts and just sort of turn the volume down on it, until I started having what the medical world couldn't really explain, a series of miscarriages that they could not really figure out why. But all of a sudden, after the third one, they were sure that I would never have a baby. I was like, well, how do you know that if you don't know what's causing it? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, that led to a whole like, well, we're kind of the experts here, we know. And I was like, okay, well, I could literally see and feel the souls that I was meant to birth, that the children that were meant to sort of come through me in this lifetime. So I knew it like at a very cellular level. So luckily I didn't allow the medical world's truth to become mine. And then I got pregnant with my oldest son with no intervention. That pregnancy just sort of held, and I knew it would, because he's a force of his will is just like from the get-go phenomenal. So that then made me trust something beyond what I could see differently. Like I really knew to trust my own knowing. Fast forward to 7 months, I started having all these like deeper knowings and visions of something could go very wrong at the birth. And so I was asking, like, okay, what's going on? And I heard just a very simple statement. Don't worry, as long as you don't go into the operating room, you'll be fine. So I said, okay, well, so what happens if I go into the operating room? As simple as the sky is blue, you don't come out alive. And I was like, well, okay, so that seems fairly serious. So for the first time in my life, I started sharing with people that in my life, my husband at the time, his parents, my parents, because my normal MO would be navigate around the thing. Like, so when my intuition would tell me, don't go left, go right, that's easy, go right. But if you're 7 months pregnant, you are not navigating around giving birth. You got to do it. So I was scared, honestly, for the first time, like scared about the process. So I spoke up, and everyone just told me I was hormonal. Nobody dies in childbirth. This isn't going to happen. And then it played out like I had given everybody the advanced script. My doctor's like, hey, we got to take you into the OR. The baby's stuck. I was like, yeah, no, that's probably not a great idea. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if it comes to me or the baby, then take me in there. Otherwise, how long do we have? She said about an hour. I said, okay, great. Let's find another way. And then it was a series of strange things, like the epidural wouldn't work and I could feel, and they're like, we're going to have to use the general anesthesia because you can't do the C-section in here. So it was one thing after another. I ultimately did avoid the OR, which was great. But for 12 days, they turned my room into an intensive care, and it became a series of miraculous, miraculous,
Synchronicities.
yes, and healings. There was my case was actually presented at Harvard Medical School because there were 5 things that should have, any one of them should have killed me, none of which did. They changed certain things in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Medicine, after, about being aware of a woman's blood pressure in pregnancy. And so, like you were saying earlier about the benefit to the collective, and I'm sure you see this in your life, in your work, with the kind of light and space you hold. Like sometimes things happen to us in order that it doesn't happen to others. And that's just something we agreed to probably lifetimes ago. And so this was one of those things, because there was a lot of things that weren't getting addressed for women related to their blood pressure, and even certain coverage for them. Like it fast forwarded to me being able to testify for certain insurance coverage for women and all kinds of things. But it came from, thankfully, knowing this ahead of time so that I could actually do something about it. And what it gave me to offer my clients was an unwavering connection to wanting to serve their highest good because of the importance of it. Like if I had just discounted don't go into the OR, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right now. So it made me really anchor into, this is what I need to be doing without any doubt. And during those go back to God experiences, basically that's what he said to me. He's like, you need to get out of the corporate world and do this healing work. Like, it's time. Like, you've known this from your own birth. Here we are. It's time. A lot to explain to make the link between sort of my incubator to giving birth to my son, but that's where everything changed, where I knew I had to be doing this. Like,
Yeah, it makes sense from this from the side that I'm seeing. It's like two parallel roads because there are two miracles shown into your life. One was your actual birth, and one was your child's birth, which clearly, according to everybody's belief, was impossible. So you had
right.
two miracles happening in your life that you had no choice but to open yourself up to believe so deeply into what was happening because these are not miracles. This could be our real life. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
that things don't happen to us, the accidents don't happen to this, but the way we come out of it and the way we magically attract all this healing, it's wonderful. So it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you get to a point and life just becomes perfect. It's you get the tools to diffuse and dissipate any energy. So it is the best outcome that you could
Yes.
possibly have, right?
Exactly.
Because if
Yes.
that life was perfect, then we would be really bored.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you probably find this too. That's one of the sometimes misnomers of this path, is that it makes everything sort of, I don't know, happier, easier. It makes your relationship to the experience that no matter what's sort of thrown at you, you have a perspective within it, but it's definitely not the easy path. However, it is just filled with such beauty, and getting to meet other, like-minded souls who are also in devotion to the good for all is amazing.
One question that was coming to me as you were describing your child is a lot of mothers were asking because there are mothers on this summit that were told they couldn't have a baby and now all of a sudden
Mm,
it appeared as a miracle.
mm. I
How
love
would you
that.
describe your child? Does it have special abilities? Does it because I'm assuming it's a true gift from higher realms.
Yeah, so I have two sons now that are in their early 20s, and they both have different but unique gifts. My oldest still sort of makes me emotional, because he's such a deep feeler, and didn't really understand what was happening, and then in some ways felt responsible. But he would have dreams. He's very connected to Mother Earth and the earth energies. He would have dreams about things that would happen. It was always very specific, somewhere between 3 to 5 days before it would happen. So 9/11, the tsunami, because he was born in Boston, not far from the where the marathon starts. Before the marathon, the thing that happened at the Boston Marathon, he would dream these things ahead of time. So his is very like earth energy connected, but also he's really gifted at relating to people because he understands very deeply. And my youngest, he's studying psychology. He's going to be a therapist because he wants to really help his generation, but in a way where these kinds of things can be factored into it too, or whatever's true for someone, whether it's sports or sort of adventure, like going to Outward Bound or something else besides sort of traditional therapy, but having the degree in traditional therapy to help people who wouldn't otherwise find their way to some of those less common approaches to healings. He is one of the kindest people. He just cares so much about everyone else, and he's had to learn to care about himself as much as he cares about everyone else.
Isn't that a lesson for all of us? And I think that's why you channel this is to, especially if we're on this road of healing, coaching, and so forth, to learn to love ourselves as much as we love others and to give ourselves as much as we give others and cherish ourselves as much as we cherish others. Because
Mm,
if we don't, we're only going to be able to serve that many people before we burn out.
right.
And that is our
Yes.
responsibility, loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves. It's not only it's our responsibility.
Think that's so important that how clearly and succinctly you said that, because we hear that a lot, but for a lot of people, it just doesn't land. And given that was your segue to the mothers, like women in particular, and especially mothers, often have a hard time because it's so focused on the child, the baby. So I really appreciate how, like, that was very energetically grounding and so succinct. And we hear it a lot, but it doesn't often land. So I'm going to go back and listen to that particular. That
If
was
you
fun.
ask me what I said, I probably don't remember because
Yeah.
most of the things just come through.
Yes, yes. That was like, I have the truth bumps from that. That was really so important. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for your presence. Your guidance from your angels to work with people, it's geared very much towards holding retreats and holding that space. Would you please give us an overview of what it's like to come to one of your retreats?
Oh, yeah, thanks. This is sort of new territory since my sons went to college because I was very invested in raising them. So I would do like retreats in my hometown of Sarasota, Florida at the time, and do like, day retreats and things like that. But in the last probably 4 to 5 years, I've been almost exclusively traveling to do the retreats. And so sometimes it's a corporation that wants to offer it to their employees for 3 to 5 days. And sometimes it's a family of generations that come together. Sometimes it's a couple. This particular one that I'm in right now is just an individual who wanted to focus on her own deep healing after losing her mom and a couple of life transitions. So they can be custom curated for a corporation, a person, a family. And then sometimes there's group ones where maybe sometimes people come together, but then they're meeting 15 or 20 people that they don't really know. So there's two ways that it can happen. The components that always are the same are some time in nature. So we pick a place that is just really rooted in nature, very healthy food, so that the body is nourished in a way. And for some people, this is the jumpstart that they need to like change habits that they never really thought they could ever change. So I love like watching people, be like, oh, like at first this tastes a little weird, but by the end of it, like I can't eat that other stuff anymore. And some people come because they already live that way and they eat that way. But it's really always beautiful to kind of watch. And then the deep healing work. And I think why the retreats are so powerful for most people is because it's a chance to step out of your day to day life and you don't have to do anything other than take care of yourself. And like we were just talking about a minute ago, and you don't have to cook, you don't have to clean, you don't do laundry, you don't do anything except whatever. If you have a scheduled body work treatment, well, that's the other component that always happens. There's at least two body work sessions within it so that whatever we're processing out emotionally gets moved physically. So whether it's acupuncture or massage or whatever modality, there's always that component. And really, for a lot of people, this is the first time they're ever held in such deep receiving where literally they can go take a nap if they want, they can get a treatment, they can go be in nature, and they have deep healing sessions that titrate over 3, 5, 7 days. So they go in for very deep healing, get some rest, deep healing, nourishing food, deep healing, body work. So it really builds on the creating the entirety of the healing because it's over such a time and space where you're not distracted by anything.
One question that comes to you, because our environment influences us so much, and at times we'll go to a workshop or event or listen to an interview, we get so pumped up and so
Yeah.
inspired. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to meditate every day, I'm going to do this routine every day, and so forth. What have you found in your practice? People coming to a retreat, they feeling amazing, then they go home. Do you find that they continue on using some of those tools, or do they go back to their old ways because the environment reminds them of the old ways?
That's a beautiful, again, very important thing to sort of point out. So um, we end the retreat with a program for them so that feels accessible, right? Because there's the real, then there's the ideal. And of course, the retreat setting is lovely when it lasts, but it's not real life. So then how do we bridge between what they've learned and what they can take with them and then sort of the day-to-day reality? So it varies person to person, but there's always post-retreat follow-up. So there's like 1 week out, 4 weeks out, and then they can set as they would like to sort of keep up with the practices and the support. And to know that even if you have 5 minutes, that's better than no minutes. So, some days it's not realistic that you're going to maybe be able to do an hour of yoga or half an hour of meditation. That's okay. Just like what has been coded in the body, like we were talking about earlier, you can access that in a minute or two and still receive the same benefits. So as long as there's some daily, like, wake up and make sure you're connected, or like placing your hand on your heart and feeling that vibration that you left with. There's many tools that you can do in a minute or 5 minutes. It's really important to remember that, real life, the real and the ideal, that you may not and probably don't have time in the same way you do when you're on retreat. But 1 minute or 5 minutes is really good to deepen in. A lot of things that people can do is just close their eyes and like feel into the vibration and the muscle memory, the cellular memory of the yoga practice or of the yoga nidra or the meditation or an aha moment. Like the body remembers, like the book The Body Keeps the Score. This is really true. So you can use that tool to access whatever you want to remember. So if you want to remember that great hike, close your eyes for a minute and go back into like the sounds, the smells, using the visceral sensation to bring yourself back. Same benefit in a minute or two. Um,
Mm. So you're
and
saying as long as you experience something, you can anchor that somewhere in your body or in your imagination, as long as you have experienced that once, you can always recall it and use those benefits over and over again, like a
yeah,
bank account.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, great way to condense that and say it, so that I think people think, well, if I don't have the hour or I don't have 30 minutes, I can't do it, and that's just not true. And sometimes a simple inhale and exhale can just cause the reset. So yeah, with the time you have, you make the most of whatever you can do. you know.
Mm. On that note, guided right now to ask you if you would please channel a journey for our VIP members on maybe how to align our energetic codes with the most amazing things in our lives.
Okay.
How does
Yeah,
that feel for you?
that sounds great.
Thank you for this journey. If I were to describe what I was shown, and it's my first time experiencing this, it was shown to me that I had this. If you could imagine a store or a shop where you sell different things, right? You have all kinds of products.
Yeah.
And that store was inside me, like within my heart's space. And when you're like, okay, you have this gift and all of these things that you share out, which I'm already aware of, but what the guidance told me when you were guiding me through the journey was that, hey, because you have this amazing medicine, you have unlimited supply for yourself from this store.
Ooh.
That means whatever you give out, whatever intention, whatever you send to others, you have unlimited amount within yourself for you. Make sure
Mm.
you drink up and you eat up and you're always full. That's what was told to me. So that was amazing to see that visual. It was almost like a structure, like, hey, you have all the products inside you.
Which makes sense to me with this beautiful platform you're creating to help others, that you are so divinely resourced to be able to continue doing that, right? Like it makes so much sense, because this platform and this reach that you're going to help so many people, that you would be resourced in having everything you need in order to keep doing that. Like, so that's like that, as you give so you receive, because the amount of people that you're going to help, that ripple is so meaningful and so necessary right now, like really an important time.
I feel angel bumps all over.
Mhm.
And it truly is. And let this be an inspiration to every single one of you who is on this path, because we're so good at giving and sharing and offering, is to know that that is the unlimited supply within every single one of you. And hopefully, if you go through this journey, you get a visual and a taste of what I just experienced. Is quite magical. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So beautiful. I feel so grateful to be with you today and in your presence, and a part of this light that you're outpouring. and also receiving.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience, with our angel humans in conclusion?
Just deep gratitude, like just really profound gratitude. And just this offering of love without condition. You know, we often say unconditional love, and it's become so common that when we reframe it just a little bit, like love without condition, like love in its purest form, just because we all are built that way. Just I just feel so much gratitude and love, and thank you to you. Feels very familiar to be that I feel like this, that this is not the first time that we've been in shared experience. Like I feel like I've known you. So you just have such a inviting, welcoming, beautiful energy. And I think
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for all of you who are watching right now, if you feel comfortable, if you feel like, oh my God, for some reason, I feel like these are my sisters, these are my soulmates, and you are relating to this beautiful soul's energy never selling your body. It tells you, like, I don't know why, but I need to follow her journey. I need to drink from the same Kool-Aid, to taste the same medicine, then please follow up. There will be a link underneath to experience or continue your journey on if this is the modality that is for you. This is all for today, my beautiful angels. Keep your hearts open, allow yourself to drink and eat from your own unlimited supply, and continue shining your light. Until the next time.